Can everybody see my screen?
Yes.
So would someone,
I see it.
would someone read what it says for me?
Sure. If you're not now making the progress you would like to make and are capable of making, it's simply because your goals are not clearly defined.
Now
Oh
that
my.
statement has been proven through the ages. So the question that you have to ask yourself is, are your goals clearly defined? What you want to accomplish?
Your voice is in and out.
You're kind of cutting out, clipping.
Oh, sorry. Computer. Microphone's not that far away. Is this better?
No, it's
Better?
still happening.
Huh, let me check my website.
No,
Excuse me.
we don't hear anything you're saying.
Can you hear me now?
Yes.
Yep.
Better?
Yep.
For some reason when I had it on share. Just checking. Can everybody hear me okay?
There you now.
Yes, now we hear you.
Yep. Sounds
Okay.
good.
So the key to success in life is really simple. Napoleon Hill wrote a 250-page book to let us know that the key that of what the 500 wealthiest people found out in 1925 when he wrote the first version of Law of Success is that successful people have goals. Now today, we all know about goal setting, yet how many of us actually practice goal setting? And what I mean by goal setting, I mean, do you have a written goal with a deadline, with a plan of action? And you've examined what are the obstacles that stand in your way and what are the potential solutions that you can use, kind of what we discussed on last week's goal. Now, most people don't do that, and that's why most people don't accomplish their goals. And then the two motivators that ensures is the insurance policy on your goal setting program is affirmation and visualization, auto suggestion. And in the 6 steps, Napoleon Hill tells us to write down our goal in a form of a statement and to see, feel, and believe ourselves already in possession of the money. So we're affirming it every day through auto suggestion. That's affirmation. And then we're visualizing ourselves. Well, Paul was a big believer that imagining things is great, but a lot of people have difficulty with that. So the best thing you can do is, what was it that Confucius said about a picture? Anybody remember the quote?
1,000 words.
Picture's worth 1,000 words.
1,000 words. And that's very true. So what Paul would do is he would take pictures of the things he wanted. So if he wanted a new car, he would go down to the dealership and take a picture of the car. If he wanted a new house, he'd go and find a house that's similar to the one he wanted and take pictures of the house. Whatever it is he wanted, he took pictures, and lots of pictures. When I was down in Waco and in Houston and in Dallas for conventions, he would encourage us. There would be like these fake trophies at the end of the stadium, you know, at the beginning of the stage. And he would encourage us on breaks to grab those trophies and stand on the stage on the podium as if we're giving a speech and we're receiving that trophy, and to have someone take our picture. And a lot of people did that, and a lot of people that did that achieved their goals because it made it easier to see yourself accomplishing whatever the goal is if you can see a picture of it. So this statement is something that was one of the first statements that I got out of Paul Meyer's program called the Dynamics of Personal Goal Setting, which sometimes it's just called the Dynamics of Goal Setting, which he published in 1977. And this statement I put on my refrigerator door because it haunted me. And it simply said, if I'm not now making the progress I want, then it's because I don't know what I really want. I haven't really clearly defined it. And so it's not easy at age 22, 23 to define what you want. People get hung up on, what is my life purpose? That's the wrong question to ask yourself. Imagine you're 23 or 24, you're trying to figure out what your purpose is for your entire life. You're not going to be able to do it. You don't have enough knowledge yet. Your life's purpose is something that will be revealed to you as you go through the process of setting and achieving goals. The thing that we must do is that we must identify what are the things that we want in life. And we're going to talk about this process, which is using our imagination. And then we're going to talk about persistence, because the chapter on persistence is the most valuable chapter. But by now, you should know what is the preferred way of gaining persistence. Does everybody know the answer to that? What is the best way to gain persistence?
Using auto-suggestion.
Suggestion.
Repetition.
Napoleon Hill in the chapter gives us 4 steps for obtaining persistence. Does anybody know what those 4 steps are? He says there are 4 simple steps which lead to the habit of persistence. They call for no great amount of intelligence. I think we all qualify there, right? No particular amount of education. That qualifies some of us. And but little time or effort. The necessary steps are. And what I did when I read this the first time is I wrote this down on a 3x5 card. I was big on 3x5 cards. Today, use sticky notes, but put it where you can see it. And why do you want to put it where you can see it? Anybody want to tell me? Why? Why do we?
Because out of sight, out of mind.
Yeah. And it stays within the auto suggestion. If you see it every day.
Because exactly what you're saying, because if we see it every day, it uses auto suggestion. Okay, and we're auto suggesting it to our subconscious mind all the time, just like a billboard. When people buy billboards, they don't go out of sight, out of mind. They go, we need to get this message impressed. Today, when people buy ads on Facebook, they're called impressions, right? How many times that ad is shown to you? So how many times do you think you have to see the same ad before you will possibly take action on that ad? Anybody know the magic number? Ooh, excuse
Isn't
me.
it like
It's
7 or
12?
8?
6.
6, yeah.
6 repetitions is what they say it is. And it's funny because Paul said that based on the research he did about spaced repetition is that people don't really absorb anything until it's been impressed upon them 6 times. It's repetition, 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 repetition. So when we see it once, it's not enough to make a difference in our lives. So if you want to use it in your lives, it must become part of you. You must accept it, but not at an intellectual level. You have to accept it at a deeper level than that, and that requires repetition. So the 4 steps that Mr. Hill gave us is 1, is you need a definite purpose backed by a burning desire for its fulfillment. So how do we get a burning desire? Anybody know? There's 2 ways. If you're taking notes, you would know this. How do you create a burning desire?
Repetition and auto-suggestion.
Well, auto-suggestion is repetition, but okay, so 1 is auto-suggestion. And what is the second one? Remember earlier I said there's 2 tools that are the insurance policy.
Visualization.
Visualization, which is imagination. So for example, how do you create, if you like steak, for example, and we went to a steak restaurant and you saw those steaks, people coming out with the steaks and they're sizzling and cracking and they're smelling, you smell that smell, what happens is your mouth begins to water. Or if I talk to you about biting into a lemon, has anybody here ever bit into a lemon and tasted that bitter juice when it first hits your tongue?
Mm-hmm.
I actually like it.
Yeah, I do too. But the thing is that we can imagine that taste and we can create the desire for the steak by looking at it. How do little children create desire for Christmas toys? I'm sure at one point you were a child or you had children.
We used to look through catalogs of toys.
Yeah, and you'd see the cartoon of the commercial on television, right? Or you'd have magazines, or you'd have newspaper ads, or you'd go to Macy's or whatever department store, and you'd see the toy, and then you'd never let it go. You'd be like, "Mom, Dad, I want the bike for Christmas. I want the gun," and they tell me, "You're gonna shoot your eye out, kid." Remember that movie? The kid wanted that gun so bad, and they told him he was going to shoot his eye out, right? So the 4 steps are a definite purpose, a definite plan expressed in continuous action, a mind closed tightly against all negative and discouraging influence. And 4th, anybody know what number 4 is?
Mastermind, aligning yourself with other people.
That's right. A friendly alliance with one or more people who will encourage you. Why do we not share our goals with people who are not part of our mastermind? Anybody know the answer to that?
Stealers,
Negative
they'll talk you out
influence.
of it.
Yeah, because they don't believe in you. And they don't know how this process works. This is a faith-based success system. And if anybody casts unbelief, it destroys the process. So you can only share your goals with people who are part of your mastermind or understand this philosophy, so they won't say, you can't do that. Now, don't mistake that with setting realistic goals. I've had people come up to me and tell me that they wanted to sell underwear and they had never been in the underwear business. They didn't have the capital to do it. And it's a hard thing for me because I know that it can be done, but what makes a goal realistic or unrealistic? What is the real answer? Does anybody know?
You have to believe that you can achieve it.
Okay. Can we eventually develop that belief?
Absolutely.
Yeah. So what's the factor that really controls whether a goal is realistic or not?
Your own belief.
Okay. Now remember what I just said and what who was that just spoke? I don't see the chat group here today. Who was that? Was that Lisa
Jay, I
Marie?
think. No, I said it first, but then Jay, I believe, or
Me,
Larry.
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 So the first part is that you must believe, but in order to develop that belief, it takes what?
Confidence.
Time.
Oh, yeah, that's obvious.
Yeah. Auto suggestion, repetition, affirmation all takes time. Why? Because we have to first overcome all the disbelief that we've programmed in, and then we have to sell ourselves, right? Belief, 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 belief. And then it becomes internalized. It takes at least 6 repetitions. The more repetitions, the better. Because for many of us, 6 repetitions is not going to be enough because we've been repeating how we suck for more than 40 years. So let me stop the share here. Let me. Okay. So one of the first things that we need to do is we need to identify what it is we really want in life. So one of the people that best exemplifies that is a man by the name of John Goddard. Anybody know who John Goddard is? Can you see my screen now? Yep.
Yeah.
Yep.
Okay. So who is John Goddard? John Goddard was born in 1924. He died in 2013. He is considered to be the modern day Indiana Jones. Now, what makes Mr. Goddard so special is that at age 15, he made a list. As you can see on his website, he made a list of 127 goals that he wanted to accomplish in his lifetime. How many of you have a list of the things that you want to accomplish in your lifetime? Anybody?
I have a bucket list, I guess.
How many things do you have on your bucket list?
It started out over 20, And I think I have 5 or 6 yet that I have not done.
Okay. Um, Expand that list,
Okay.
okay? And if you don't have one, let me ask you this. Anybody ever go on vacation?
Mm-hmm.
When you go on vacation and you want to make sure that you don't forget to turn off the gas and electricity and, not forget your luggage or your toothbrush, what do we all make?
A list,
A list, right? Why do we make a list?
so we don't forget.
So if making a list to go on a trip or a vacation is something we should do, doesn't it stand to reason that we should make a list for the things we want to do in our lives?
For sure. Yeah.
So that's what John Goddard did. At age 15, he was motivated to make his list of everything he ever wanted because he heard his grandfather on the porch talking with his buddies. And guess what they were all talking about? Now, these are men that are in their late 60s, 70s, and 80s. What do you think they were all talking about at this point in their lives? Take a wild guess.
What they accomplished so far and what they want to accomplish before they die.
Quite the opposite,
Or what they hadn't done. Yeah.
what they didn't do. Exactly.
We didn't do it.
People don't look back and go, oh, I did this, unless they're very accomplished. For most people, it's regrets of what you didn't do. Okay. And so that's exactly what he heard. And so it motivated young Mr. Goddard to make a list of everything he ever wanted accomplished in his lifetime. And he came up with a list of 127 goals. Have you ever heard of anybody doing that before?
All the time.
You've heard of it before? Yeah. A lot of people.
People making
Like-
goals all the time. Yeah, people make
You're-
lists. They always talk about bucket lists and things like that. Whether they actually do them or look them over, that's another thing.
What he did is not a bucket list, because I hate that expression, because it's a negative connotation. Paul called it a dream list, which stands to reason better. To go to the Greek Isles and spend a month in Greece, that's a dream, not a bucket, Bucket gives you a bad feeling. So now remember, at 15, this was 1939. In 1939, not a lot of people knew the meaning of the word bucket list. So this was unusual. So let's take a look at what he put on his list. He wanted to go down the Nile River. He wanted to go down the Amazon River. He wanted to go down the Congo, the Colorado River. He may, as you can see, there's check marks on those. So not only did he write it down, but he also created a plan for accomplishing it, which makes it different than what most people do, doesn't it? So he sat at his kitchen table and he wrote these words on top of a yellow pad, my life list. And he wrote down 127. Now, at the point that this page was made, he had accomplished 109 of those. He expanded that list to over 143, and he accomplished about 130 before he passed away. Now, some of them were goals like to study primitive tribes in Congo, New Guinea, Brazil, Borneo, Sudan, Australia, the Philippines, because back in his day, 1940s, there still were native tribes in some of these countries. He also wanted to climb certain mountains. He wanted to climb Mount Everest, never did, but he did climb Kilimanjaro. He did climb Mount Ararat. He climbed the Matterhorn, Mount Rainier, Fuji, Mount Broma, Java, and Mount Broma in Java, the Grand Tetons. He also wanted to visit every country in the world, and his note here is that he had 30 to go. This is different than most people, because most people never get this involved in the goal and setting and goal achieving process. He wanted to study the Navajo and Hopi Indians, which he did. He wanted to learn to fly a plane. He wrote an F-15 fighter pilot. He actually flew it. He wanted to ride a horse in a rose parade. He wanted to photograph certain things. He wanted to explore the Great Barrier Reefs, the coral reefs of Florida, the Fiji Islands, the Bahamas. He's the one that got me interested in scuba diving. He wanted to visit the Great Wall of China. So you can take from this list to help you make your own. He also wanted to swim in Lake Victoria, Lake Superior, Lake Titicaca. Lake Nicaragua, sorry. He wanted to become an Eagle Scout, which he did. He wanted to dive in a submarine. He wanted to land and take off from an aircraft carrier. He wanted to ride an elephant, a camel, an ostrich, and a bronco. He wanted to skin dive to 40 feet and hold his breath 2.5 minutes underwater. He wanted to play the flute and the violin. He wanted to type 50 words a minute. He wanted to make a parachute jump. He wanted to go on a church mission. He wanted to follow the John Muir Trail. He wanted to learn to fence, to learn jujitsu, to teach a college course, to watch a cremation, to appear in a Tarzan movie. He didn't get to do that, as you can see. He wanted to build his own telescope, write a book, to publish an article in National Geographic magazine. These are all the things, and it would be good for you to read every single one of these. He wanted to milk a poisonous rattlesnake, and he got bit by it too. He wanted to visit the moon. He wanted to get married and have children. He wanted to live to see the 21st century. These are the things that he decided he wanted to do at age 15. And some of them were easy, but some of them were difficult. I reached out. I didn't know anything about John Goddard until I was looking to do a safari in Kenya many years back. And the type of, I had read an article or watched some television show that talked about that the last unspoiled preserve that had all the animals still available before they became extinct, like a lot of those lions, tigers have become extinct. We drove tigers into extinction and luckily we were able to bring them back. So in Kenya, they had this preserve that you could go into and photograph these animals. It was not a shooting safari, it was a photograph safari. And so I Googled it and I found this particular place in California, and they said that they only shoot animals with cameras, which appealed to me. So I picked up the phone and called, and I got this nice gentleman on the phone, and he proceeded to tell me all about the safaris and about how many animals had gone extinct and how many were going extinct. And then he mentioned his name, John Goddard, and John was nice enough to send me the 2 books that he had written, Kayaks Down the Nile and The Survivor, at no charge. He mailed them out to me, just a sweet guy. And I'll tell you, I think he sent them to me because I told him that I love, Tarzan, Edgar Rice Burroughs books. Not the movies, yes, but more so the books. And he said, read Kayaks Down the Nile and tell me if it doesn't put hair on the back of your neck. What he did during that trip, his partner died from malaria. The Nile has patches where you have to get out and walk, and you have to take your kayak with you. And the kayaks they used were not made of polyester or fiberglass. They were made out of skins. And so when the crocodiles would go under the kayaks, he said you'd feel every bump on their back, on the backs of these crocodiles. And if you fell in, you were pretty much a goner. And it's an exciting book. I looked it up on Google because I lost my copy years ago, and it sells for a lot of money these days. I mean, you might be able to find it for under $25, but it has it here for $149. But it's a great book. If you could ever get your hands on it, it's definitely worth the money. So what I'm going to suggest to you is that you decide today, and if you do, I will send you this form. It's called a master list of goals. And basically what you're going to do with it is write down everything you've ever wanted to achieve in your life. So you would put the date that you wrote it down and then the area of life. So there's 6 areas of life that we deal with. Does anybody know what are the 6 major? No, you don't know. Let me share them with you and write them down if you would, please. So Paul Meyer, I came up with the idea of the wheel of life. He said that a human life is like a wheel. And if one area of life is messed up, then the wheel will not go round. Does that make sense to everybody?
Yeah, I think I could actually name these. Wouldn't it be like personal, professional, financial, health, and now I'm stuck, I guess.
Just bear with me for a second. Paul put it this way. Let me see if I can find it.
I had actually made a wheel up one time, and I believe I thought there was 12 areas, but maybe it was only
Some
6.
people have taken his idea and of course they stole it. Paul came up with the concept of the wheel of life because as a boy, he was born very poor and his father wouldn't buy him a bike. So he had to build his own bicycles. And one of the hardest parts, if you have a bent rim on a bike, it's really difficult to put it together because each spoke has to have so much pressure on it. So the 6 areas of life are 1, financial and career. Okay. Number 2, physical and health. Number 3, social and cultural. Number 4, mental and educational. Number 5, social and cultural. And number 6,
You said social and cultural twice.
oh, did I? Okay,
Yeah.
so let's go back. So it's, I'm doing it by memory. It's health and fitness, physical and career, mental and educational. That's 3. Number 4, social and cultural. Number 5 is, okay, hold on. Bear with me for 1 second. I know them, but sometimes when I'm trying to do it out of memory, it's tough, but I have it here.
Relationships, maybe?
Now, where would relationships fall? Family and home.
Okay.
Just bear with me for a second. Can everybody see the screen?
Yep.
Prioritizing personal goals.
Mhm.
Okay, so family and home, financial and career, mental and educational, physical and health, social and cultural, and spiritual and ethical. So the first thing you want to do is you want to ask yourself is what is the priority that I hold these 6 areas of life in? And what you want to do, and I'll be nice enough, I'll share this form with you guys. We use it to when we're working with people to determine whether what they think they believe and what they really believe is accurate. So what we have you do is to list these 6 areas in the rank of priority. So for example, let's go with you, Lisa Marie. What would you say is your highest priority of those 6 areas?
Spiritual and ethical or family. Those are both right up there.
Okay, well, they both can't be number 1, so pick one.
Spiritual and
Number
ethical.
2,
Family and home.
3,
Physical and health.
4,
Financial.
5.
Mental's got to be up there.
Is mental higher than financial?
I think so.
5.
Then the financial and then the social.
Okay. So let's now take a look at the reality of that. How much time do you spend? What's your number 1 priority?
Spiritual and ethical.
How much time do you spend on a daily basis in that area of your life?
Minimal of half hour every day.
Okay, so, all right. And family and home? How much time
Well,
do you spend in that area?
now all of my time.
Okay. Let me ask you this, since you have finances at so low priority, do you feel challenged by finances?
No.
Are your finances in good shape overall?
Yeah, they are.
Okay. At one point, you didn't have it in this order, I imagine.
No, of course not. I mean, we first started out, yeah, we struggle for sure.
Right. So when we first start out as young kids, what for most people should be their number 1 priority?
But it should be Financial.
financial and career, right?
Yeah.
Get established. Then as you start making money and as you have a little bit of savings, then your priorities change. So these priorities are dependent upon where you are in life.
Mhm.
So let's go with Larry. Larry, what's your number one area priority?
Right now, it would be financial and career, but actually more important to me on a common sense would tell me it should be either the mental health, the physical health, and the mental health, because without either of those, you're not going to get financial health.
What's number two?
I would have to say, if I were to prioritize at least my top three, it would be finance and career. It would be physical health and mental health. But I could flip 2 and 3 around either way. I would have to really decide which one is more important.
Well, it's not mental health, it's mental and educational, has to do with reading and taking courses. Health and the physical area of life is physical and health. So mental and educational is, are you spending, do you enjoy reading? Do you spend time reading? What courses are you taking to improve your skills, either personally or professionally? That would be that area of life.
See, I had about a year ago, I changed careers and everything. With what I did for the previous 20 years, I actually would have kept that tie with the career because I was out on the road a lot. So I had that opportunity to do studying while I was driving around and things like that. So I could have easily I could do one well the other. But
Okay,
a lot
so
of it is health that affects health is affected.
Number one for you then is financial and career. Number two is mental and educational. What's number three?
Actually, number 2 would be physical health.
Physical and health, okay.
Physical and health. Number 3 would be mental and career.
Number four,
The ethical,
spiritual. Okay.
spiritual and ethical. Social and cultural.
Number six,
Family.
number seven. There is no number seven.
I was just gonna say there is none.
Okay, so now your number one priority is financial. How much time do you spend every week working on your financial goals?
Well, between going to work and trying to hustle, I'd say about 50 hours a week right now.
Okay, so your actions match up with your priorities. Now, number 5 was family and home, or number 6?
Bottom would be family and home.
How much time do you spend in that area of your life?
Minimal.
And how is that area of life?
It's not very good at all.
It's minimal. So it's not any big surprise when we start looking at our lives this way, that some areas of our lives are working well, but some areas of our lives are not that good, right? So
That's true.
So what we do is, by using these forms, we analyze what each area of our lives is like. So, but one of the things that Paul focuses on is that we must set at least one goal in each of these 6 areas of life each year. Because if you have, what is the purpose of setting a goal? Anybody want to tell me?
To put something down to shoot for instead of shooting out of air out of nothing.
Yeah,
Okay.
We don't have something to look forward to. You got to have something to look forward to, I think.
Yeah,
And if you're not growing, you got to grow every year.
Yeah, you need a target, a deadline, something to aim for, right? Because what was it you started off with? If you're not making the progress you would like to make and are capable of making, it's simply because your goals are not clearly defined.
Mhm. True. Yeah.
So what we want to do, and what I want you all to do, is before next week's class, is I want you to strive to write down 100 items on this master list. Now, when you're creating this list, you're going to suspend your disbelief. So if you have an idea and then you say, well, I don't have a college education, I want to be a doctor, right? Let's say you put that down. But then as you go to write it down, you go, well, wait a minute, I don't have a college education. I don't have the time to go back to medical school, or I don't have time for that. Don't worry about it. Write it down. Because the purpose of this is to reawaken your dream machine because it's broken. When you were a child and you wanted a bicycle, did you think about where the money would come from? You're 6 years old. Was where's the money going to come from to get a bicycle a concern of yours at that point?
No,
No,
I just wanted my
No.
bike.
no, you just wanted it. And you said Santa Claus, that magical being, you know, who comes down chimneys was going to get it for you, right? Until you learned otherwise. But what did your parents do? They busted. They were good parents. What did they do? What did good parents do when their child wanted an expensive toy? They did one of two things.
Happy birthday.
They either gave it to you or they told you why you couldn't get it. You were a bad boy all of a sudden, right? But the
Or
thing
you had
is,
to earn it yourself.
or you had to earn it yourself. Yeah. I mean, but the point, depending on how old you were, if you're 5 or 6, chances are you got it. If you're 20, if you're 18, not, 15 or 16, you're on your own, buddy. You're in the teenage years. Nobody loves teenagers, right? But in the cute age, which is before 10, right? Before you start becoming a teen, pretty much as a child, unless you grew up in a family that had financial struggles. Why do people struggle financially?
Their belief
Based
on
on what
money.
you just learned, based on what you just learned, why do people struggle financially?
No plan.
Okay, but
No
let's take a look at
plan,
this
no
form.
belief.
What is the real reason? It's right in front of you right now. Can you see my screen?
Mhm.
What's my
They
screen
didn't
say?
prioritize it.
Bingo. It was more important to go down to the bar to have a beer than to set aside that 10, 15 bucks in a savings account. It was more important to take that drug than to go put money in a savings account. It was more important to go see that football game, baseball game, whatever it is that you spent your money on was more important than achieving financial success. Most people, if you and I walk down the street and we approached 100 people in America, how many people, if you ask them, do you want to be a millionaire? How many would say yes out of 100, do you think?
All of
98.
them. all,
All of them?
all of them, I would say.
So if everybody wants to be a millionaire, why are so few people millionaires?
Because it's easier not to do things. Seriously.
I believe.
Well, Lisa Marie got the right answer if that who spoke just now. The
Yeah.
answer is I think it was Arnold Palmer. I think he just recently passed away too. Forget if it was him or somebody else. But they talk about how Arnold Palmer, who was considered one of the greatest golfers in history, how he would basically, one day he was on the golf course and he was walking off and one of his fans approached him and said, Arnold, I'd love to play like you. And Arnold had just spent, his 8 hours playing golf. And he turned to the man and he said, no, you don't. You don't want to play like me. And he proceeded to take off the glove that was on his hand. And he showed him how that hand was bleeding, right? Because all the calluses had opened up. And he said, young man, you want to be like me if it was easy. But because I'm a professional golfer, I have to hit 1,000 balls a day as part of the regulations to being a professional golfer. So you want to be Arnold Palmer if it was easy. So everybody wants to be a millionaire if it means 9 to 5, weekends off, right? Plenty of Miller time or whatever time there is now, margarita time, the ability to take, a month off on vacation, and all these things. And what are they not willing to do? Pay the price. Is it possible for everybody in this country to become a millionaire?
Absolutely.
Yeah, it's not a big goal anymore, right? At
No.
one time, being a millionaire was a big deal. It isn't anymore. Most people that invest in their 401k from, say age 25 or 26, and they do it consistently, will have more than $1 million in accumulated savings. That's just the way it is. So $1 million is nothing anymore. So what we want to realize is that we need to do this. So when we go to make this list, I want you to look at John Goddard's list to get an idea. So what I did is I have 7 categories. So my 7th category is fun goals, adventure goals, I call them. So we have 6 areas, right? Mental and family, health, home, financial and career, mental, educational, physical and health, social and cultural, spiritual and ethical, and I have adventure and fun. So under adventure and fun, because you know what happens is me as my personality type, I'll get all involved in all these other areas. And guess what happens? I forget about having fun.
No fun.
Yeah, fun just doesn't come into it. And you know what they say, all work and no play makes Bert a dull boy, right? Because I don't care about Jack. So I want you to sit down and write 100 things. So I wrote down on my list to climb Mount Everest years ago. And recently, about 5 years ago, I posted it on Facebook and somebody immediately came out to tell me all the reasons why I should not climb Mount Everest. Most people die, but you know, all these reasons. And it proved to me immediately what? That you never share with other people your goals because why?
Because they laugh at you or make fun or they give you negative feedback.
Based on what?
They're only torn by their own beliefs.
Bingo.
Their past experiences.
They're going to share with you their past conditioning,
Yeah.
their own mistakes and failures in life. That's why Zig Ziglar, who's one of the guys that I love listening to as a personal speaker, he said that you only share give up goals and you don't share go up goals. So a give up goal would be as if you want to lose 30 pounds. If you want to lose 30 pounds and you tell most of your friends that you want to lose weight, most of them will be supportive in that goal, correct? Yes, no,
Yes,
maybe?
yes.
Most people will be productive. I want to give up cigarette smoking. Would most people be supportive in that goal?
Addiction. Most
Yeah.
people will support that.
Yeah. I want to give up taking drugs. They'll support me in that goal, right?
Yeah.
I want to have a net worth of $20 million. What happens now?
Oh my God, you're going to be worth
You
more than
can't do
that.
it.
Hell no.
$20 million?
Are you
What
crazy?
are you talking about? You work at Amazon. You work at Walmart. You work at whatever. And they put on you, and I'll give you an example of this. Years ago, back in 2017, I set a goal for a new company that I had just started, and I set a goal to do $10,000 in the first week. And I shared it with my friend, and he was a manager of a music store making about 60 grand a year, right? And I forgot about that. So he saw it, because what I like to do is when I set a goal for a week, for a month, for a year, I take an 8.5 by 11 sheet of paper and I type it up, right? Like right now, I have one here. So one of the things that I like to do is as Jim Serbasky used to say, I take my own medicine. I don't just preach it, I do it too. And that's why I know it works. So I shared it with this gentleman and I said, do you think, I said, he saw it. He says, the goal was, I am so happy and grateful now that I have made $10,000 by, and it had a deadline. And he said, what's that? And I said, oh, it's a goal that I set myself for this week. And the way I did the goal is I set the goal on a Saturday, and the goal would begin on Monday. And the way I did it is if I hit the goal before Saturday morning, I'd allow myself to go to the sports bar. But if I didn't hit the goal, I'd have to keep working Saturday and Sunday until I hit it. And if I didn't hit it by Sunday, then, you know, I'd reset it and try it again. So this gentleman says, well, I said, do you think I can hit it? He said, yeah, I think you can do it, but not in a week, maybe in a month, maybe in 2 months. Right? Now, remember, he's making $50,000 a year. How much is that a month?
Little over 4,000.
That's right. So in his mind, how long does it take to make $10,000 at $4,000 a month?
2.5 months.
2.5 months. And that's exactly what he said. Take you a month or two. But for me, I had done it before. It was a stretch goal for sure. So I called up Alan, my buddy Alan. Alan makes 300,000 a month. How much is that a day? 300,000 divided by 30 is what?
About $1,000 a day. A little more.
Sure.
Oh,
Try
10,000. 10,000. Never
a
mind.
day.
Never mind.
Exactly, 10,000 a day. So when I said to Alan, hey, Alan, I want to share my goal with you, what do you think? What do you think Alan's response was? To my goal of
Come
10,000?
on, come on. He probably said shoot higher.
He
Piece
said,
of
why
cake.
so low? No difference between the two people other than what they believed could be done. Now, was it what they believed I could do? Or was it based on what they believed they could do?
Based on their thoughts.
Yeah. So this guy, Phil is his name, said, you can't do it. And Alan said, why so low? You know, make it 50 grand, which blew my head away because, you know, that's, I had never done $200,000 in a month. I had done 50,000 a month, 60,000 a month, but never done 200,000 in a month. So I kept it at my goal. Now, here's what's funny is I hit that goal Saturday noon by 1 o'clock. I worked every day, busted my hump, and I hit that goal Saturday noon. And then I went out to the sports bar, had a fun time. And then what happened is because of the momentum I had started on Monday and Tuesday, I did another $4,000 in business. So I ended up doing $14,000 is my opinion from that week, because the rest of that business just came from people that I had reached out to, but hadn't been able or explained to them the program, but they wanted to think about it or some other BS excuse. And then they decided to jump on board. So that's one of the reasons why you have to be careful who you share things with. So when you write this list, you know, if you want to climb to Mount Everest, write it down. You want a Mercedes-Benz SL 550 convertible, write it down. You want a brand new Sea Ray Sport Dancer 350, write it down. You want a condo on the beach, write it down. You want to swim with dolphins, write it down. You want to parachute out of a plane, 10,000 feet, write it down. You want to swim with sharks, good luck, write it down. Whatever it is you want to do, just don't censor yourself. It's an exercise in using your imagination. No matter how silly it may sound to others or even to yourself, just write it down. So who here will do this exercise to gain the real benefit of setting and achieving goals? Who commits to doing this exercise?
I'll do it.
Yeah,
I'll
me
do
too.
it.
All right, let's go this way. Anybody not willing to do this? You don't have to share it, by the way. It's on an honor system. So if you say you'll do it and you don't do it, then it's on you, it's not on me or anybody else. Everybody okay with that? But the thing is, you want to push yourself out of your comfort zone. So let's play around a little bit. So let's call on people who hasn't spoken really. Marty, are you on there?
Yes, right here.
Marty, what are some of the things that you would put down on your dream list?
And I've got two antique vehicles I'd like to get restored. 1980 GMC pickup truck, 1974 Dodge Challenger.
There you go.
Mm.
What else would you like to do at this point in life? Is there any place that you'd like to travel to that you've never been to before?
I keep thinking that
I had a gentleman that put down in his statement that he wanted to travel to every country in the world.
oh. Yeah,
And-
Australia would be nice.
And 5 years later, he had traveled to none.
Mhm.
So what I said to him to do is the way he put it is what John Goddard did is to visit every country in the world. That's what he wrote down.
Mhm.
But what do we know about setting goals? Specific or general? Goal must be specific, right?
Yeah.
So I said, what countries do you want to visit? He said, all of them. And I
Mhm.
said, make a list of all the countries. And he was one of those people that actually did do the homework. He made the list. And then I went back and I said, I asked him, which country would it be easiest for you to visit? And so we identified that was the United States because he lived here, right?
Hmm.
So I said, and then we made another list of all the states that he would like to visit. Because do you know what? Most Americans never really see the beauty that's in this country. I lived in New Jersey And I never went to the Statue of Liberty, and it was less than 20 miles away.
Yeah.
Isn't that incredible?
Yeah.
I lived there since age 5, so 40 years, 45 years, 50 years almost, 50 years, yeah, 50 years. And I never went to see the Statue of Liberty. I saw the Empire Building. But how many things nearby that a tourist would travel to your state to see that you've never seen? And yet people jump in planes and fly there or drive there to see it, and you're like, who cares? Right?
Yeah.
I did go see lots of Broadway shows. I did enjoy that. I never went to Ellis Island, which again is another big tourist attraction. I did go to Niagara Falls, but that was because my parents took me when I was a kid. But the thing is, you want to just write down, don't matter, it does, it's paper and ink, that's all, or it's a piece of paper, a PDF file. Just write down everything you've ever wanted in your life. If you wanted a Ferrari Testarossa, write it down. You wanted to own a turtle, write it down. You want to jump out of a plane? I did that already multiple times. And the beauty part is that when the parachute opens, it's the best feeling in the world. Because you don't die from the fall, as my instructor told me. You die from the sudden stop. And you do balance, by the way, when you fall from 10. Do you know what the maximum speed is when you're falling out of a plane? Do you know what terminal velocity is when you jump out of a plane?
No.
Okay. What falls faster, a feather or a 10-pound weight?
10-pound weight.
10-pound weight.
I'd say
You
a
would
feather.
think, right? But it
Yeah.
doesn't work that way. They both fall at the same rate of speed.
Yeah.
Terminal velocity is 155 miles an hour. So when you jump out of a plane, if you don't wear goggles, what do you think happens to your eyeballs with the wind rushing at them at 155 miles an hour? They dry up real quick. You can't see. That's why you wear goggles. But at 155 miles an hour, that's terminal, that's maximum velocity. That's as fast as you can drop without propulsion. When you hit the ground, it's not like what they show you in movies where you see the body all in one piece. At that speed, the body basically is like a balloon. If you get my meaning, right? It explodes. There's not much of you left. So not discouraging you from jump. I've done my first solo jump. The jumping tandem was easy. Solo jump was the scariest thing I've ever done. So write down everything you've ever wanted. It doesn't matter. You want to climb Mount Everest, write it down. You want to buy a beautiful car, you want a new home, you want whatever it is you want, write it down. It doesn't really matter. So John Goddard ended up accomplishing 143 of these things before he passed away. And I encourage you to go to his website. It's John, John, Goddard, Goddard. You can just Google it like I did. And he was a member of the Explorers Club, and he has his own wiki page, and he's passed away. He passed away in 2013, but an incredible, incredible individual. And I asked him, I said, John, when you set these crazy goals, right? You would imagine, if you wanted to, let's say go to Easter Island, there's money involved. Now, he didn't make a lot of money. That wasn't his purpose in life. He was interested in being an explorer and an adventurer. And he was a college professor. I believe he was a college professor at USC. Let's say here. He had many near-death experiences. To dares to do, to fears to fail is his motto. And he was a college professor. Let's go back over here. I think, let's go to the wiki page. He was a professor at USC, yeah, University of Southern Cal. He taught anthropology, right? So that's what you need to do in order to become a explorer, right? And so, use his story as inspiration, because the worst thing to do is to get to the end of your life and then realize that something you really wanted to do, you didn't do it. Because there are no limitations except those that you place on yourself. Does everybody understand and believe that? Yes?
Yes.
So, so the first place you begin is just like going on a vacation. Paul Meyer used to say that people spend more time planning their summer vacation than they do planning their lives. Isn't that a shame? That we actually spend more time planning a little weekend getaway than we do planning our lives. We don't decide what we want to accomplish, and consequently, we get very little done. And we get to that point in time, and then we have the biggest problem, which is that we then believe that because we're a certain age that we can't do it, right? I think I love people like George W. Bush. What did George W. Bush do every year for his birthday?
They jump out of an airplane.
Yeah, didn't he jump out of a plane when he was 80 years old in a wheelchair? Yeah,
Yeah.
didn't stop him, right? So he didn't let anything, physical ailments and health conditions, stop him from doing the things that he wanted to do in life. And that's what successful people do, is they decide how they want to live their lives. Okay, so let's spend a little time now back on persistence. Let's see, where's my persistence? Oh, damn it. There it is. Okay, so the 4 steps are listed here somewhere. I have it in my book. It's highlighted.
Have they written goal plan, avoid negativity, and like a
Mastermind.
mastermind?
Definite purpose backed by burning desire.
There it is. So how to develop persistence. So what's the real purpose of a mastermind group? It has really 3 purposes. Does anybody know what the 3 purposes are of a mastermind?
Well, I'll
Have-
tell you the combined experience, combined education experience, things like that. It's being able to bridge what you have with other people to accomplish it.
Right. It's a place where you can get specialized knowledge, which can help you do what?
Not everybody is good in every area. You got to have other people that are
So it gives you specialized knowledge to do what? I highlighted it. Can somebody read it?
for your plan.
To create a plan, right?
Yeah.
So if, let's say you're Henry Ford, was Henry Ford a great engineer?
No,
No.
Hmm.
Was he a great financier?
no.
Yeah.
No.
Good.
He failed 3 times. They
Oh,
stole his company away from him.
That's
He was
why
an
you
idea
have the
man.
mastermind for specialized knowledge. Whatever
And who
you
was in his
don't know.
mastermind? Who was in Henry Ford's mastermind? Anybody know?
You had
Edison.
50.
Firestone,
Mm.
wasn't it Firestone and Edison? And I'm not sure if there was someone else.
I thought there was 50 people in his mastermind.
4 people
Hmm.
in his personal mastermind.
Oh. Well, where did I read that? 50 people he had.
Well, he had most of his executive staff was in his mastermind, but here's
I
his
see.
mastermind group. Can anybody identify these people?
Mm.
Edison, Firestone.
That's Ford.
Mhm.
Who's that?
Ford. Carnegie.
Carnegie.
Carnegie. Yeah.
That's Edison.
Mm.
Right?
Yeah.
Who else? Harvey Firestone, right there,
Okay.
I don't know.
and John Burroughs.
Yeah.
Anybody know who John Burroughs was?
I don't.
Who was John Burroughs? I know the name.
I
John
don't know.
Burroughs.
The version that I saw, because some people got kicked out of the mastermind. John Burroughs was, let's see, he was active in the conservation movement, and he was an author.
Hmm.
He was a naturalist.
Does that say he died in 1921?
Yep,
Okay, when was his mastermind?
1800s,
Oh,
before the turn of the century. So
Well, even like Carnegie, didn't Carnegie die in like 1915 or 17 or something like that?
yeah, 1915, I believe it was. Yeah, he retired in like 1886. So this is the original mastermind. Edison, Firestone,
Herbert
Ford,
Hoover.
and who's this Herbert Hoover, who later on became a what?
Presidente.
President.
Mhm.
So now let me give you context. At one point in history, Thomas Edison was considered to be what? Starts
illiterate?
with a G,
Oh,
Genius?
genius.
Hmm.
Who today would you say you could call a genius?
Jeff Bezos?
Jeff Bezos, Elon Musk possibly, right?
Yeah,
But the
absolutely.
thing is that Edison had 140 patents.
Hmm.
Which is what made him such a genius, is he created that many things,
Hmm.
right?
Yeah.
And what he did is what made him a wealthy inventor and businessman is that he produced them himself.
Hmm.
Now, he was a very highly educated individual, Mr. Edison, right?
No.
Not at all.
Mm-mm.
How far
He,
did he go?
he was thrown out of school like
Third grade, I thought.
third grade, second grade, something like
Third
that. They
grade.
said he had an addled mind.
Yep, third grade, he was thrown out. And then he worked in a railroad, right?
Mhm.
And one day he almost fell off and somebody grabbed him by the ear to help to stop him from falling off. And what happened for the rest of his life?
He was deaf.
Deaf in that ear. Yeah.
Hmm. Hmm.
No
What made-
kidding, I didn't know that.
Yeah. So here you have what is today still considered one of the most prolific geniuses of our nation. And he didn't have a college education, didn't
He
graduate.
failed
from grammar
10,000
school.
times. 10,000.
Actually, the number is closer to 2,000. They've exaggerated based on
Oh,
some of the
really?
research. Yeah, but it's still a lot of times, you know?
Hmm.
I mean, most people quit after 2 or 3, right? You know, he worked at the railroad. He ran the telegraph, and that's how he was a telegraph operator. That's how he was able to succeed. And then from there, his career began in tinkering. Back then, they called it, and he began tinkering. And he formed 14 different companies. Does anybody remember which is one of them?
General
GE.
Electric.
That's right. The original company was called the Thomas Edison Company. Has anybody been down to his, ever visited his,
I was just gonna say the museum is fantastic. I went as a kid.
which one did you go to? The one in Menlo Park here in New Jersey?
I believe
In
so.
Orange? Yeah, I went to that one. And it's a tiny little thing, but it's there that he developed the assembly line. And then what made Henry Ford wealthy?
The assembly line.
Yeah, that's all he
Wow.
did is he created the mass assembly line, so you didn't have to build a car piece by piece. You could basically have one person do one thing and they became an expert at it, right? Specialized knowledge. One person knew how to paint the hood or paint the fence or side to side, all those things. So he was basically one of the greatest. There's a whole town in New Jersey called Edison, New Jersey. He was a hero at one point. At this point in time, most people don't even know these individuals and what they accomplished. For me, it's a time that I look back at these individuals because they had none of the things that we consider the trappings of modern day necessities to succeed, right? Now, Mr. Edison was given a copy of the 6 Steps by Napoleon Hill. And do you know what he said about those 6 steps?
That they were perfect.
They were the exact 6 steps that he took, and anybody who undertook using those 6 steps was sure to become successful. This is an individual who was the smartest man. Possibly the only person that was smarter was Tesla, but at least he was recognized as being the smartest person on earth. And imagine that this is your mastermind.
Excuse me for interrupting. I need to go early, so thank you for your time tonight. I apologize.
No problem. We're almost done here.
Okay.
So the purpose of using persistence is persistence in the application of 1, writing out our statement, defining what we want, creating a goal, creating a plan, and then following through on a plan. And the way you build, how do we build persistence when it doesn't exist?
Auto suggestion.
Bingo, exactly. Auto suggestion is the key. Now, in this chapter, does it mention the secret?
I don't remember where, I know it does have the secret in here after reading it last year for like 30 days in a row.
You did do that?
Yeah, we
Okay.
did that as a challenge.
Yep.
And furthermore, he says it's in every chapter of the book, so I know it's going to be there somewhere.
It's been mentioned in every chapter in the book. Yeah. Yes, it's in the chapter on persistence. I probably have it in my own personal copy here in front of me. Because what is the secret? Persistence is a state of mind, therefore it can be cultivated like all states of mind. Persistence is based upon definite causes, among these, definiteness of purpose. Isn't definiteness of purpose really the secret?
Yes.
Yeah. Definiteness of purpose is the secret, and it's the first law of success, is that you must have a definite purpose in life in order to achieve. So what I did with this particular chapter is, for the 3 years I was in the mastermind, I read this chapter once a year, every year. So I've read this twice a year, actually, in January and in June, were the times that Lou set it upon us. And so I've read this chapter multiple times, and I always wondered what was the importance of this chapter. But if you've never read it, I want you to go back and I want you to understand how wily Mr. Hill was. How many times is the word, I want you to underline, if you have a copy, or if you have it in a PDF format, you can underline it. How many times he uses the word persistence? If you start to be aware, you'll see that the word persistence is repeated many, many times. What was Napoleon Hill attempting to do? Using the power of autosuggestion. Nobody knows?
Driving the point home.
Yeah, so what is it that we know about here? If we go to the chapter on faith, in the chapter on faith, we have the self-confidence formula, right? And if we're reading the self-confidence formula, what do we begin to understand? The importance of what? Autosuggestion. So what does it say? I realize the dominating thoughts of mind will reproduce themselves in outward physical action. I know through the principle of autosuggestion, any desire that I persistently hold in my mind. So if I persistently hold the word persistence in my mind, what will eventually happen?
To gain persistence.
Yeah, because persistence is a state of mind. So the more I think about being persistent, the more persistent I become. All right, everybody.
You know,
So
I
you got
want to
your-
drive one thing real quick. It's
Sure.
a lot of these different versions of the book, unfortunately, don't have, or maybe they added in an appendix. The true beginning of the book is actually, what do you want most? That's before even the foreword of everything in a, you know, in the original book, and in the reproductions done by the Napoleon Hill Foundation. So much of that stuff is in that, like, that 2 pages drives home so much of it that's so important that all these different versions seem to neglect.
Well, in the version I have by Melvin Powers, the second page says, what do you want most? Is it money, fame, power, contentment, personality, peace of mind, or happiness? The third
I happen to be holding that particular version in my hand, but I do also have an original copy.
Yeah, and this is an original text of the original book.
It's a facsimile with the one with the brown and black cover.
This is it right here. Can you see it? Hold on, let me stop the share. Can you see it?
I see it. I'm holding the exact same copy.
So, you know, if you go through my copy, you'll see that it's very much highlighted and written in. This is the copy that I refer to the most because it's since it's highlighted, I can easily find what I'm looking for. I have at least 5 copies of that book somewhere, one on my bedside and so forth.
But
yeah, I
ironically,
mean,
with this particular version, we have his forward first, but if you go to the actual one, the reproduction from the Napoleon Hill Foundation, that is the first, is what do you want most? And I just think with a lot of people that drives the point. He's saying the point like within the first 2 words.
yeah. Absolutely. This is, Tony Robbins, Paul Meyer, W. Clement Stone, Zig Ziglar, Dennis Waitley, John Maxwell. What do all these people have in common? They first read Think and Grow Rich. Think and Grow Rich is the path. This is what created the personal development industry. There were other books, the Science of the Mind. There was I Dare You, I Can, I Will. There's a ton of great books in that era that were written. But this book is the one that stuck around. And that's because Mr. Stone decided that this information, because by 1952, remember, Think and Grow Rich was published in 1937. Most books don't last 20 years on the bestseller list. So by 1952, this book had kind of disappeared into obscurity. But Mr. Stone had used this book to turn his $100 insurance company into a multi-million and eventually into $1 billion business. And his company turned around when he shared this book with people. And even though this book is not complete by any means, it was enough information for most people that actually found those 6 steps and wrote them down to achieve more than what they would ever accomplished in their lives. Yet how many people, they say that more than 100 million people have read this book. How many of those 100 million people that have read the book? And I know because I ask people all the time, the first question, and you probably know this, Larry, is when we spoke, I asked you, did you find the secret? Do you have a statement? And in my, it's now been 7 years of doing this with the public. I originally only did this with people that work for me, because if they become successful, I become more successful. But since I started doing it with the public in that period of time, in 7 years, I must have talked to at least 5,000 or 6,000 people, if not more. And they all said they read it. And how many people do you think actually had a written statement?
Maybe
One.
2.
One guy.
Okay. No, when I was out on the road, I had similar things I would go in and out of because, in South Florida, some of the mansions, things like that. And it took a little bit of twisting and turning. And then I finally, because at one time I was kind of set against like, okay, they say that a lot of successful people did, but trying to get some of them to do it. But then when you got them to do it, it was constant conversations with them about it. But like I said, it wasn't really, I've heard The Secret so many times, but it really wasn't the hair on your neck moment until last week. And it just, out of nowhere, just like, boom, did that.
What happened to create that hair back of the neck?
It was just a moment of when we were talking about it and reading the 6 steps. And I just said, for lack of better words, holy shit, these are the 6 steps. This is really, you can, in other words, you can hear, yeah, it's a secret. Put it in plain sight to someone and they won't find it until they're ready to find it. And that's.
Well, it goes beyond
It
that.
was.
I mean, this is, to me, this is like first grade. It's first grade.
And by the way, the publisher.
The more advanced is when you actually have a plan of action. And you have goals in each of the 6 areas of life. And each of those goals is written and specific. And, you have a list of everything you've ever wanted, which I have 5 lists of, 5 pages of everything I've ever wanted. And, every first of the year, I make the list, I review my list every month. I review my plan of action every day. Okay, my plan of action is my place to go to where all my goals, dreams, desires are recorded and kept. So when I look at that, what happens in my mind is I think about what I want to achieve. And then I have pictures in my plan of action of the kind of car I want, the kind of house I want, the kind of vacation I want to go in. And I can go to my plan of action anytime and review it and get a motivational kick. But more importantly, I have the form that I worked with you last week, which is my goal. And then on there are the action steps that I have to take along with the deadline. I always put the deadlines in pencil because deadlines tend to change. And I never quit on the goal. I might change the deadline, but I never quit on the goal. I might change the plan, but I never quit on the goal. And so I have right now, I'm working on 6 different goals, because the first thing I do every year is I ask myself, of all the goals I listed, which ones are the easiest to accomplish that I want to? And then I have a second list, which is, of these goals, which ones do I desire to achieve the most? And then I go and I make a list for each area of life. For each area of life, I have my priorities. So, in my financial, this is my physical and health area of life. My number 1 goal is to work out 5 times a week. My number 2 goal is to have a complete dental exam, which even though it's minuscule and you may say, well, that's easy to do, but I put it down as a goal, because if I don't, it's easy to forget. I don't like going to the dentist. The other one is to have a complete ECG and complete heart exam this year. And these are my physical and health area of life. And then I have one for my financial area of life. And I have one for family and home, which family has taken a greater importance in my life as I'm getting older. And one of the goals that I set was to create a great relationship with my sister, which I have been developing through my plan of action. My plan of action was to reach out to her. Certain things, that you can do. Then mental and educational. You are part of my mental and educational goal, right? Because every time that I reinforce the learning by teaching it to somebody else, it becomes deeper in me. And I'm taking you beyond Think and Grow Rich, because I want you to understand that the beginning point is creating the statement, but the real answer is in creating a plan and then reviewing it every day. Because if you review your goals every day, you're going to accomplish them. The people that say, oh, I made a dream board and I put it in my dream, those are assholes. You can't hit a target you can't see, right? Paul Meyer used to say, you can't serve 2 masters. You can't ride 2 horses at the same time. You can't sit on both sides of a fence. You have to make a decision. So same thing with achieving a goal. You have to make a decision of what you want, and then you have to decide when you will have it, and then you have to create a plan to achieve it. And the plan's not going to be perfect, and that's okay. But as you start making, what do you think the guy that does a 20-foot pole vault started? You think he started out jumping 18, 20 feet at first? With a pole vault? No. Where did he start? 3 feet, maybe 5 feet, 6 feet. And then they may bring it up a foot. And then at some point, when you get around 18, 19 feet, how much of an increase do they do it? Maybe a 1/4 inch, maybe 1/8 of an inch. Right? That's how it works. How do the guy who that runs a marathon, did he just wake up one morning and run a marathon? No, he probably walked around the block. Then he built up to the point where he could run around the block. And then he did a 5K, and then he built up to a 10K, and then he did the marathon. The guy that climbs a mountain didn't start out by climbing Mount Everest. He starts out with Little Mountain first, and then he builds a bigger and bigger and bigger. It's always incremental, baby steps, right? Because how do you gain confidence? By conflict, engagement, and doing. Remember that. You build confidence by conflict, engagement, and doing. All right, everybody. I'm going to let you go. It's 10:19. I hope you got value. Everybody get some value out of this?
I got great value, and so much of what we have covered so much, just really, really quick. I got into the insurance industry about a year ago. It was a whole new thing after COVID, and I've tried different companies. And I went to the bottom of the barrel, had the most negative opinion of it. I reframed because it was for people with DUIs, things like that. I reframed it to being a specialist, changed the whole attitude, walked into a nightmare of a circus, and by reframing it, and the one phrase is opportunity coming, slipping through the back door. And I found that all this stuff is just so, when you're able to reframe it, it's amazing the irony of what he says that comes behind it, because it's probably one of the best situations of, at least for the time being, for the employment world.
Yeah, it's easy to be positive when everything's going your way, isn't it? How hard is it?
Absolutely.
You know, you're making 20 grand a month. You got a beautiful family, you got a beautiful wife, you got $1 million in the bank. It's not going to be hard to stay positive. Right? But when you got, you know, $10 in the bank, when you're lost your job, that's when it's hard to be positive, but that's when you need to do it the most. It's in the time of desperation that we need positive thinking more than ever.
It's funny in
Because-
some situations how a peanut butter sandwich can taste good when you were accustomed before to a filet mignon, but you know what, you power through it and you see what happens and go beyond it.
Yeah, and you decide that you're not going to have peanut butter sandwiches anymore. It's about setting standards for yourself. I challenge everybody here that the next trip they make, that they don't do it anything less than first class. Once you decide that you're never going to fly less than first class, guess what will happen in your life? You'll figure out how to fly first class. What's the difference? I don't know. If you've never flown first class, you don't know. But once you do, you will want to go first class every time, especially on long trips. All right, everybody.
Have a great week.
Have a great one. Talk to you next week.